Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. Happy Sunday. Hope you're enjoying your day, your weekend. It's been an interesting past week. Started out. Yeah, I'm definitely going to talk about Kevin because, it was shocking. Didn't expect that to happen. I mean, I know everybody, um, none of us are promised tomorrow, but I didn't expect it. And when I heard the news, I was like, nah, this is BS. It's just people that are hating on him, just hoping for his death. And then when I found out it was actually because I was watching, I turned to see what lead attorney was talking about. Saul Shea had said, he's waiting for word. He's nothing's confirmed yet. And then I saw Dennis Sperling. I saw Melanie King come out with something, and I was like, wow, this is real. It's like, wow, it's really messed up. But welcome, PJ. Welcome. Yeah. Okay, so you're yeah, I mean, the whole thing is what I'm seeing is people with a message, people with an agenda using not being honest about what's being said. So if you want to disagree with stuff, because there's been a couple of times people have asked me how I feel about Kevin Samuels, and I've said I don't agree with everything he says. There's certain things I don't agree with. I've said what I do like what he was doing was on the YouTube side of actually emphasizing capitalizing on YouTube and realizing that YouTube is a business, treating it as such. And so he definitely did that for himself. But one of the things he was also doing was putting together others and putting them on game, putting them, this is what you need to be doing. This is what you need to be paying attention to. So I saw Dennis Sperling talking about it yesterday about how he had broke stuff down to him. And Dennis was like, at first Dennis was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then he broke it down in a way where he was like, okay, yeah, you're right. And so that's why he had lead attorney Dennis Sperling and MTR up here in New York to show them, because basically he was trying to build something bigger. He was in the verge of building something bigger. And that's why that's really what I'm looking at in terms of what he was about to do on the business end. It's what's really like, oh man, there's he had a plan. He had a plan, and wow. But in terms of his message, in terms of the things he would talk about on this show, I see a lot of people purposely ignoring parts of his message, or even that his message is a response to something else. Welcome, Trey. It was a response to something else. So, okay. So you say the dude spent a whole career dragging and bashing black women because he knew it sells. Because honestly, if Cynthia G died and her fans called her the godmother, dudes would turn to black women. I don't think Kevin is the male Cynthia G. I think somebody like a Fresh and Fit would be more akin to it, closer to the male Cynthia G. Because let me tell you what I've noticed about. So you think he's basically a more educated, Fresh and Fit? See, here's the thing about him. So have you watched some of his older videos? What's interesting, and it ties into something I'm going to be talking to later on in today's show. a show, one of his older episodes popped up on my feed yesterday morning. And after what had happened earlier in the week, it was just really interesting. But I'll talk about it later. But basically, there's a lot of times when he would talk about, like if you look at his older material, he's specifically speaking to men, particularly black men, and telling young black men, what black men need to be doing to improve chances at, jobs, women, success, just all over, all around success. So he tell dudes, like, stop complaining, like stop saying, oh, like it's hard to find a job or it's hard to make connections and stuff like that. He's like, if you're not putting your best foot forward, then yeah, it's gonna be hard. And so one of the things he'd be talking about is dressing better, wearing cologne, doing things that really presented an image, so that makes it that much easier. Because he's saying, listen, it's a game, and we have to know the rules of the game and play by the rules of the game. And so while I don't necessarily think we have to play by the rules of the game, I think we have to be aware of the rules of the game, and at the very least, know how to use the rules of the game to our benefit. That's definite. But we have to know the rules of the game. So I'm 1,000% in agreement with that. But if you look, like there was some times when he would get very blunt with dudes who, and like there's this one that's circulating on social media now. Dude calls in, says, hey, I think women should talk to me. I shouldn't have to chase women. I shouldn't have to approach women. They should come up to me and talk to me. And he goes, okay, how tall are you? Now this is a dude he's talking to. Dude says he's 5'10". He says, okay, how much do you weigh? The dude says he weighs 285, 280, 285. He goes, oh, okay. So you're 5'10", 285. So you're fat. He goes, how much money you make? Dude says he makes like $400 every 2 weeks. He says, so you don't even make $1,000 a month. And then he says, do you got a big package? And dude's like, what? He goes, no, you heard me. You heard me. He's like, well, dude starts studying and stammering. He says, like, do you or not? He said, well, it's above average. He goes, no, listen. If you got a big one, you got a big one. So the point is, you don't. So you're fat. You're fat. You're broke. He's like, why on earth would a woman be choosing you? Why on earth would women just be going up to you? You don't even have a big package. So what do women get out of choosing you? He's like you're delusional. And that bluntness people didn't like. But if you listen to the entire conversation, you got to acknowledge, like, that dude thinking that women are supposed to choose him, and he's got nothing going for him. It's like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, get some stuff behind you, get something, have something, bring something to the table, and then you could say, you know what, this is what I think women should be choosing me. I think women should be coming for me instead of me having to do the work of chasing women. But there has to be a reason why you think that your woman should be chasing you. But that's what happened with so many of these conversations with so many of these women, that was like, you would hear the sound bite, you'd hear the sound bite, and it would be like, oh, how dare he say that? But people don't listen to how the conversation started. Like, I saw a clip of one woman talking about how she's in her, I think, mid to late 30s, has 3 children by 3 baby daddies who are all gangbangers. And she's unemployed. and she says, I'm looking for a man who's going to take care of me, and he lays into her. Because think about that. Why would a dude put himself through the think about three? So even if he absolutely loves this woman, and she's such a great personality, the fact that she has 3 children by 3 other men who are all gangbangers. Think about the added stress, drama, and problems that are almost inevitably going to come from that situation. So him telling her, listen, what? And she's unemployed. And so I'm like, listen, if that was me, she said, I'm trying to find out how to find a man. I'd be like, no, you need to find a job. Like that's the, like you're unemployed, you have 3 kids, and you're worried about a man? No, you should be worried about being able to provide for yourself and those 3 kids. So I would there's times when he was less blunt than I think I would have been. I'm like, because some of these people that were calling in had ridiculous expectations. And if you take a look at it, it was the reason why it so often landed on Black women is because that just tended to be his audience. When white women called in, listen, he would not hold back either. In fact, there was not too long ago, about a month or a month and a half ago, he laid into this white chick who was calling in and making some he's like, no, like your expectations are unrealistic. Now, I think there's a component to that where just because their expectations are unrealistic, I don't think that there's no way that they can achieve happiness or whatever. I think there's certain things they would have to do. But he was treating it as you are right now today, this is what you can get, and what you want, you can't get. Whereas I would have been more along the lines of, okay, well, this is what you would need to do in order to get the man that you want. And for some individuals, that would be a lot of work. Like you would have to put in a lot of work to be able to get with the person that you're trying to get with. But I think too many people would only see the clips. Like I saw people on Roland Martin's channel, and there was an overweight black woman who was criticizing him, and she called herself fat, and she's like, yeah, I'm fat, but I'm not bitter. But I'm like, there is this mentality right now, which doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense from any standpoint, but to just cater to people's ego as opposed to telling people what they want to hear instead of telling people what they need to hear. And like around weight, especially in the Black community, when we're having such bad health outcomes, like we need to be on top of this. And this is something I didn't really pay attention to, but I've started focusing on it more in the past couple of years. But let me take a look and see some of these comments. Good afternoon, Trey. For those saying he's trying to help the Black community, he's trying to help us by telling women. Listen, that comment, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say everything he said was right, or even that perspective was correct. What I think is, in that situation, he should be advocating for an investigation as opposed to just automatically, tossing the man out, because both of those situations happen. There are real situations that happen, and there are false accusations that are made. So it's a situation where there needs to be investigation. And but at that point, if a stepfather is in that position, doesn't that make it much less likely that that man would even want to stay in a situation like that? Like at that point, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gone. It doesn't, like, because I've been falsely accused of something, and so now I got to go because I don't even want to be in this position to face those kinds of accusations. But yeah, just automatically believing the man is also not what I would absolutely advocate for investigation to get to the bottom of it. But like that's where it comes in vetting who you're dealing with and truly understanding who you're dealing with. Not just being, oh, this person looks good, or this person buys me stuff, this person does this person says everything I like to hear, as opposed to actually doing deep diving into who this person actually is. I think people don't understand his message because he was a little mean and very drive to response. Yeah, he was very blunt, and that bluntness put some people off. But just look at how many people were calling into a show and asking for, because I think that especially as regards to the people that were calling in, I think they were at a point where they had tried a whole bunch of other stuff, or they had listened to all the sweet sayings, the sweet nothings that people were whispering in their ears, and they were like, oh yes, and things weren't working out. So they're like, what's going on? Like they're telling me I'm perfect. They're telling me I'm fine just the way as I am. I don't need to do anything. But yet my life isn't improving. I'm not finding the man or woman of my dreams. Like the outcomes I should be getting, if everything I'm being told is true, aren't making themselves manifest. What's the problem? And so they would call into him, and he'd tell them, well, yeah, because you've been lied to. Your expectations are unrealistic. That's the issue. Kevin Samuels spoke to black men in the past before he blew up, but because he knew bashing black women sells, he stepped away from that. Well, here's the thing. Okay, so this is the interesting thing. And so somebody, there was a sister on Twitter who commented about the way he was speaking to black women. And I commented that how the algorithm doesn't appreciate tact. And so in totality, YouTube, content creators on YouTube are running businesses. At least, so some people are doing it as a hobby. If people are doing this every day, then it really has to be a business. And as a business, like they have to be looking at what is there an audience for? What is the audience responding to? So if he comes on and he's like, oh, you're great, you're awesome, you can do it. And everybody's like, I don't want to hear it. He's got to respond. If instead he goes, no, you're lazy, you got to get off your butt, you got to do something. Oh, you're overweight, you got to get in the gym and get that fat off your butt. You gotta eat less, move more. This is what you got to do. If he starts talking like that and the audience starts responding from a business standpoint, he's got to be like, okay, this is what's working. And you see what made him big. Average at best, because like if you see, he actually delineates his YouTube career. He actually did delineate his YouTube career. BAB and AAB. So before average at best and after average at best. He actually made that delineation, because after average at best, that's when he just blew up. So at this point, because remember, he started out as an image consultant. He's talking about dressing well, how to look good, how to wear ties or certain types of clothing, wearing cologne, how to put on cologne, that kind of thing. But if that's not getting the attention, he's responding to the audience. And so first, let me just I want to do that. Let me how do I pin this? Okay, so let me. Thank you, Gore Mahia. Thank you very much for the super chat. Keep up the good work and making appearances on Lapeef. Oh, thank you thank you very much. I really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know, I was on Lapeef the other day, and I'd like to thank Gore Mahia. I hope I'm getting your name right, Gore Mahia, for the super chat. And I'll be talking about that later. But yeah, Kevin, I do want to address Kevin because the impact he had on YouTube and just in pop culture, I think is something that definitely needs to be talked about. But the seeing that he had to respond to, so he had the choice. He could either ignore what the audience is telling him they're interested in and not grow, or he could respond to what the audience is more interested in and responding to and provide more of it. So now I think there's a difference if he completely changes his message and then, okay, so imagine me coming out tomorrow and I sound like Jesse Lee Peterson and Brandon Tatum. Like, okay, yeah, I switched up, I sold out. But if I start tailoring my content, if I do a video start doing videos on finance and those are doing better, and I'm like, okay, this is what the audience wants more of, but I'm still staying true to my whole, message, my whole perspective. I've got to respond. There's a difference between responding to the audience, which I think he was doing, because there was more of an audience for his discussion on relationships. And that's the business thing to do. And so I saw him, Dennis Sperling was talking about it yesterday. And he talked about, why do people go to, if you want a chicken sandwich, where do you go? And Dennis Sperling said Chick-fil-A. Right. It's like starting a pizza shop or running or having a restaurant, and everybody loves they love your chicken, but you're like, no, but I know everybody likes the chicken I'm selling, but I want to sell fish. I don't care what the audience, I don't care what the customers are coming and asking for. I want to focus less on my chicken dishes and focus more on my seafood dishes. That's what I'm going to focus on. But people but we're coming here for the chicken. We love the chicken here. The way you make it, the seasoning, everything. That's what we want. That's a great way to go out of business, not responding to what the customers or the audience wants. So I hear what you're saying, but I think he kept his tone consistent, but he's focused on the material that drew the widest audience. But I do, to speak to your point of he's trying to help us. It's entertainment. It is entertainment. And so I think we have to recognize that first, that, the content creators on here are entertainers, ideally, if we're doing it right. Because if we're not entertaining, then guess what? Nobody's watching. If we're not entertaining the audience, then nobody's watching. And so that's his goal is to entertain. And if in the process he can give some benefit to people in terms of some good advice, changing their perspective, the way they approach situations, then that's an added benefit. But at the core, I do, and that's why I appreciate. That's why my appreciation for him is as a content creator and the gain he was providing from the business side, because he was running a hell of a business, and I appreciate that perspective, because I think YouTube is YouTube, Instagram, social media provides amazing opportunities for us to be our own bosses, but we have to do it right. I think people didn't understand his message because he was a little. Okay, yeah, I went over that one. He might have actually spoke to black men before he's popular, it's successful, but when he got popular, he only really talked about black women and he's bashing black women. Yeah, listen, I don't agree with everything he was saying. Do you think so? My question to you, PJ, is: do you think all of those women that were called, for instance, let's take that woman, the woman that has three children by three babies' daddies, who are all gangbangers, and she's unemployed, she's looking for a man. Do you think her expectations are realistic and her focus is where it's supposed to be? Or do you, like, what would you tell that woman who, if you're running a show and she calls in, yeah, I'm looking for a man, I want a man that's going to take care of me, and then he asks her, what do you do for work? And she's like, well, I'm unemployed, I get unemployment. Like, what advice would you give that young lady? A lot, but when he would sit down with people that wanted to have a real conversation, he's very respectful and would have that conversation. He also called unmarried black women over 35 leftovers when he himself was over 35 and unmarried. You can't make this up, and people forget that he was bashing. So generalizing, he definitely did. And so I definitely understand that, because there are certain people that won't fit into certain areas. So you may have a woman who's 36, unmarried, and there may be specific circumstances as to why she's in a great position to be so. If she's running a multi-million-dollar business, it's like, okay, yeah, she's got options still. She's got options. And I disagree with, and I'm not sure, he may have touched on this, but I've seen other dudes touch on this, that a woman with money doesn't mean anything. No, a woman with money has options. Because number one, she doesn't need anything from the dude, but there are plenty of dudes that would be willing to, and she could have kept young dudes, in a stable, just in rotation. She really could. Like, there are women who are very wealthy, and they could just have younger dudes buy them stuff, and they're basically kept men, and it is what it is. The same black woman that called into a show, and they would shit on him, question his sexuality, gave all types of ad hominem attacks, and so he gave the same energy back. Well, the interesting thing is that there was a young lady at his apartment, from the reports. So that pretty much, because I was waiting for the gay rumors to come out, but that pretty much squashed that, So that was interesting. The big problem is that he decided to generalize all black women and say vile shit about all black women. He generalized all black women. Okay, I can see you. You clearly have not too much, not a great opinion of him. I get it. He was talking about black women like how Fresh and Fit talk about black women, if not worse. Yes, he was. See, but I think because he was actually advocating for black men and black women to be together. And so he would just, his perspective, I don't think was necessarily in the best interest of every black woman. So there's a certain black woman that I think, and I think I said this before a couple of weeks ago, that if you were dealing with a woman that was at a certain level of desperation, guess what? His advice is great for her because she's at a certain level of desperation. She's tried all the other stuff. It didn't work. And now he's telling her, this is what you need to do. And if she's like, okay, I need somebody, then quite frankly, then at that point, it may be some good advice for her because she's tried everything else. It's not working. And it's time to try something different, something new, and be more willing to bend because you're the one that wants a relationship. If you're in that case, if you're in a position where no, I'm fine, I feel great where I'm at, and that is being honest. But for those like, need to, you don't need to listen. You don't even need to call into him. And I there's a bunch of women I think that weren't calling into him because they're like, why do I need advice from Kevin Samuels? Because they were good. They were in a place where they had their relationship goals were being met. They knew what they were doing and they were happy. All I know is Samuels had nuclear bad takes like don't believe children. Yeah, like I said, that take was a fairly bad take. Yeah, that was a pretty bad take. Men don't need women. Men can have. Okay, yeah, I'm not aware of that take. Definitely not aware of that take. Definitely not aware of that take. But I definitely do not agree with that take. But some dudes may do it. But that's not a take that I particularly agree with. It's not about him laying into black women that called in. It's about him generalizing and bashing all black women because of the actions of a few, and he was a hypocrite. Thank you. Finally, something to keep the truth. He told anti-black women hating black men what they wanted to hear. Well, listen, I definitely said he was speaking he was sticking to guy code, without a doubt. He was sticking to guy code. So it's like if you're going to go to a therapist, a couples therapist, if a man and a woman decide to go to a couples therapist, it's probably it's in the woman's. It's not going to be in the woman's interest to go to a couples therapist who's your husband's best friend. Like in that same vein, it's not going to be in a man's best interest to go to a couples therapist who's his wife's best friend. So either way, you're going to be dealing with somebody who's not actually calling stuff straight down the middle. They're kind of skewing it in favor of one party. It's not if it's not obvious, I don't like the guy. Rest in peace to him, but I don't think he was a good dude. I get it. Trey, Kevin was a flawed man doing what he could to help people the way he thought he could, and rather you like it or not, he helped many men. I think he was a great content creator. And like I said, I really look at it because as a YouTuber, I look at the perspective of what he accomplished from a business side, and I'm like, that's so much of what I need to. And like one of the times when I really saw that was with the Fresh and Fit copyright fiasco, and he came on Lead Attorney Show and started breaking it down. Like, listen, like content creators, we need to be focused on treating this like a business, and don't think that you could just take somebody else's intellectual property, somebody else's content, do it, like because he would talk about he would be doing an Instagram live, and people would just record his entire Instagram live, put it on YouTube, and think he was going to let them rock. So that is the perspective which I most appreciate for him, because I didn't I'm not looking to him for relationship advice. Samuels never mentioned an investigation, though. His solution was very black and white. Either believe the man or the kid. Yeah, listen, that's why I said that's what I would say. I say I would advocate for an investigation. I'm not saying he did. They called in because they didn't mind being disrespected. That brother spoke fact. Welcome, Jay. Welcome to the stream. Again, Cynthia G died, and everyone was like she was trying to help the black community, and she was the godmother. People go off. So there's a lot of people saying don't speak ill of the dead. Last year I did a video on, was it Rush Limbaugh, and I'm like, if in life he went out of his way to offend people, it is what it is, and piss people off. So I'm not going to tell people that they shouldn't feel a type of way. If there's a bunch of people, if they're no longer on this earth tomorrow, I'm not going to feel sad. And in some cases, I may feel a different way than not sad. So I get that there's some people who are going to feel a certain way, and there's some people who are going to feel sad and lost. And like I said, from my perspective, I was shocked because he looked to be in good health, slim guy, not in his 50s. So I was shocked. I didn't think it was true. Now that it's true, and I think from a content creator's perspective, like he accomplished so much, it's a pretty big deal. But I understand that there's a whole bunch of people he touched on the relationship level. So I definitely understand why they feel so strongly. But then I also understand that there are people who felt offended by the things he said and don't like the things he said. So I get that. And so if something happens to Cynthia G or Fresh and Fit, like I'm not going to be heartbroken, but I don't think he is the same as either of those two extremes. I think that's not the way I viewed him. No, he didn't. He spoke fact as long as he was insulting a woman. He didn't have any fame when he was criticizing men. But now you see, that's the thing though. If he was doing that, if he was, when he was criticizing men, and no, so either the algorithm isn't pushing it or the audience isn't, eating it up. At that point, the question is that on him or someone else? Do you see what I'm saying? Because if he's telling the truth, if he's saying this men, y'all need to get your stuff together. You can't be broke and expecting women to fall at your feet. You can't call yourself a high value man and you work for minimum wage. Like you're not even, you're a part-time worker at a fast food restaurant. You got to get your stuff together. If he's telling men this and nobody's watching, and then he starts saying this similar things to women and everybody starts watching, is that on him or is that what the audience is requesting? Is that what the audience is clamoring for? Or is it the algorithm? Because we have to realize that at that point, are we facing a situation where we've got these algorithms, whoever's programmed these algorithms are not actually programming them for society's benefit or whatever? Like, are they programming these algorithms to push negative stuff as opposed to positivity? Because these are questions that, because if he's just still speaking to men, like you said, he didn't have the fame, would he have gained the level of success he did? And so do you think he should have continued to speak just to men, even if people weren't appreciating his content that same way? PJ, you clearly just didn't like him, and that's okay. Different strokes for different folks. Not the issue. The issue is he was generalizing, stereotyping all black women. Why do you think so many dudes are going in on black women saying we are celebrating his death? No one. Well, listen, PJ, some people were grave dancing. Like the woman on Roland Martin's show, she starts off by saying she feels sorry for his mother, and that his mother found out from social media, but then she just goes in on him, and the rest of the panel goes in on him. And so yeah, there were a bunch of people. They're like the Cynthia G crew, Nyla and them. They're celebrating, and I'm like, they will celebrate because they we know they hate black men. So they'll hate black men, whether it's Kevin Samuels, whether it's Derek Jackson. They'll hate black men. I'm assuming, yeah, they'll hate black men just period. But they're like, I'm not criticizing all black women. Like I said, I'm not saying black women should feel sad or feel anything if they had no connection to him. I understand that there are some black women who do feel a connection to him, because there's some black women who had unrealistic expectations and then got an opportunity to like have a perspective adjustment and say, oh wow, what was I thinking? Because I even saw how one woman called and she's like, yeah, so I think she was in a first she lied and said she was like 27. Then she says, okay, I'm 36. And then she's like she's playing around and she says, oh yeah, well, he said, so what's the minimum amount that a man can make for you to consider him? And she says 6 figures. He's got to be making 100,000 or more. Okay, so he goes, okay, so he says, so that's 10% of, so you've already eliminated all but 10% of men out there. And then she says, well, no, he can make less than that. He said, I just asked you, what's the bare minimum that he can make? And so automatically she starts readjusting what she had said, because when faced with those numbers, she had to realize, yeah, what you're saying doesn't sound as realistic now that once you're actually looking at the numbers and the bigger picture. Now you have to actually think about this. Okay, maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe my expectations aren't realistic. BJ, how has your life changed right now since Kevin's out of the way? Are you better off, worse, or is everything the same? So see, there are some people who were celebrating and their life hasn't changed. I think PJ has said, rest in peace, but PJ didn't like Kevin. So I definitely understand that not everybody has the same, not everybody's going to react the same way. Because like I tell you, I was shocked. I don't even like the relationship side isn't what I focused on him, but it was still shocking to me because I saw what he was building, and that I kind of appreciate. I saw him pulling content creators together to build something bigger, and I was like, this was about to be major. Like what he was building in terms of bringing content creators together, that was going to be major. Manosphere trash just want to be affirmed in their business toward females. I think we all have some reflection to do. And I think it's a lot easier for us to point fingers than to look in the mirror. Samuel scratched an itch. Thank you for speaking facts. Jay, is your life worse for Samuel's being dead? If so, that says many sad things about you. I definitely think so. Like somebody like a Dennis Sperling, who actually met his fiance through, and they actually had a personal relationship. So I definitely know that I can see that there's some brothers in the content creation space that are definitely feeling it. Did the life of a hypocrite really affect you that much? See, I don't know that I would call him a hypocrite. and I don't think I would. Let me tell you why I don't think I would call him a hypocrite. Because, like, he said things about, like, he even says, like, as a high value man, um, like, he even mentioned, if I'm correct, I think he even mentioned at one point, high value men using escorts is a thing. It's a real thing, and it is what it is, and it's actually a safer thing than just dealing with random random women. So him being a bachelor and having a young lady up to his apartment, and from what I'm hearing, that from what it sounds like, what Sperling was talking about, that this may have been a relationship that existed before that one, like it wasn't just a one night stand. From my understanding of how Dennis Sperling was describing it. When did I ever say my life was better now that he's gone? My life hasn't changed at all. Tried of dudes treating him like a dad that died. But but see, PJ, I think a lot of dudes did look up to him as a father figure. And that in itself is kind of sad, because that means we need more male role models closer to home. We need more positive male role models closer to home, so that young men don't need to look on YouTube or Hollywood or or popular media to find somebody to be inspired by, that they can look at. Oh, I've got my father. Oh, I've got a big brother. Oh, I've got an uncle. Oh, I've got just a mentor that's in my life that is inspiring me to be a better man. But I do see that there are a lot of young dudes that looked up to him as a father figure, and it's kind of sad as to what it means for the lack of male role models, positive male role models closer to home. It doesn't affect me. I'm just enjoying seeing all these men seething. I actually didn't watch Kevin Samuel. I saw some snippets of him and appreciated what he was doing for the community. I'm crying. I'm just so sick of people treating him like a fallen warrior. He was an idiot, and this is the last time I'll speak on him. Stood his ground and kept the same energy. A problem with our people is we can't take criticism. I think, like, we're living in a society, and it's not just, and I keep seeing people say about Black people, I see American society is such a coddled society right now. It's not just Black people. American society is so coddled, and so, like, there's this need to cater to people. We're in a society right now where there's these participation trophies, where you didn't win, but you showed up, and you get an award just for showing up. And I'm like, it's like they're trying to foster weakness and emotional fragility. And I think being able to live in the real world, wake up to the real world, and realize life can be hard. Sometimes we have to be hard as well. That, I think, is a much better message and much better way to approach life than this, that everything should be great and nobody should ever offend us. And words or violence, like, no, like there needs to be some level of, like, as adults, we need to grow the hell up. American society, but it's not in the government's interest to actually be dealing with adults. It's actually in the government's interest to have a society of grown infants. It's really in the best interest of government to have a society of grown infants. And I believe I saw somebody describe it as arrested development. Yeah, they don't want us to actually be fully functioning, rational adults, because then we realize a lot of different things about the society. Stop crying. I'm not crying. I'm sick of dude acting like, okay, that was okay. R.I.P. King. Um, yeah, because anyone who criticizes him is crying. Yeah, I think that there's criticism that I hear people giving, and I get it. Samus might have been slightly better than Fresh and Fit, but that's not saying much. Everybody in here complaining about Kevin Samuels. You better be out there doing celebrations with Maury Povich died and Jerry Springers for that fact. And quite frankly, think about it. Like how much? Because I was actually thinking about the parallels between his show and like a Jerry Springer, Maury Povich. And I'm like, wow, like how much are we, our audiences in general, and it's like I said, once again, this isn't just the black audiences, our audiences in general attracted to the ratchet stuff. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to something that's constructive. We love the drama. We love the drama. And so seeing the drama and the chaos is what's bringing people in. Yeah. How's him generalizing and stereotyping all black women? Good criticism. I didn't say you, but he didn't help. But say he didn't help people when just as many have came and said he has is wild. He helped me because I can respect someone who does not beat around the bush and gets to the point. And yeah, and I think I think bluntness is a really underestimated. It's an underestimated need. So if we don't have somebody in our life, in our circle, or several people that are willing to tell us the truth, no matter how it may hurt, but it's the truth we may need to hear. If we don't have people that are going to tell us the truth, that's not good. If we don't have anybody in our circle that's willing to tell us you're screwing up, you need to get your stuff together. You like, what are you doing? If we don't have people that are willing to just pull us up, like, hey, snap out of it. Like this is stupid. What you're doing is stupid. You need to be getting your act together. If we don't have that, we're in a bad spot. Okay, no one's celebrating Steph. Well, broken clock is right twice a day. Samuels can be wrong about everything. Low-hanging fruit, obviously, some of his advice would be beneficial. People all over Twitter sounding just like you are celebrating. She's better. My issue is him generalizing. Okay, so you're talking about that woman, yeah. If you're addressing a specific person, okay, but don't go off on all black women and paint a negative image of us. So everybody want that Lizzo treatment, but we have Lizzo as the expectation, then we're all lost. And I definitely think like I had a Twitter disagreement. This was a couple of years back where people were talking about, oh, obesity isn't like you're not responsible for that. And I'm like, unless somebody is pinned you down and is force feeding food down your gullet, like no, you've got to look in the obesity is the first place you got to look in the mirror. First place you have to look in the mirror. And there's this, once again, it's that coddling attitude of no, it's not you, it's not your fault. Healthy food is expensive. And I started taking pictures of, I'm here in New York, and we've got fruit stands all over the place. You get 4 bananas for $1. 4 bananas for $1. But you want French fries from McDonald's? That's what was that? $3, $3.24. But you get 4 bananas for $1. Stop it. Pretending bisexuals don't exist. Being critical of him and saying man is not celebrating, saying yeah, I'm glad he's gone. That's celebrating. Not liking the guy is not liking the guy is not celebrating, right? Trill, I think in one of his clips he wanted black men and black and women to be better, and I saw that clip. So there was a clip that's on social media, and he's talking about he's like, I don't take pleasure in I don't take pleasure in just telling people off. Like I actually want black men and black women to do better, in like individually as groups, and then together. I want black men and black women in their respective groups to do better and to get together and to build Black families, to build Black wealth, and to build Black communities. He says that's what I actually want. Don't claim Black women saying men not caring. Okay. Javier, I think Black people have it hard when it comes to dating game because there's a bigger gap in education. There are more Black women going to college than Black men. He's reading comments type minutes ago. Feels awkward. Yeah, I'm really behind on the comments. I'm really behind, Philo. I'd like to have a conversation, so I guess I have to put in super chat. But I'm not sure if you know who Ernest Owens. Oh yeah, I saw that. That was a ridiculous post. Absolutely ridiculous post. Writer of Philadelphia, that Bussy Warriors in the trenches. Twitter celebrate. Yeah. I have to say, I just like the manosphere and the divestment community. Though as a female, I have to admit, I understand the divestors to a certain degree. See, listen, here's the thing with the divestors. Because before I heard about the divestors, I heard about the swirlers. And from my perspective, the swirlers are just Black women that are like, okay, we're willing to date outside, date white men and whatever. Divestors seem to be much more militant than swirlers. So I don't like if somebody's going to swirl, I think that's a different thing than divestors who are like the militant wing of the swirling community, and like they're on some, you've heard of the He-Man Women Haters Club, like they're the she-woman man-hating club, you know what I'm saying? So I don't get that. That's my issue with the divestors. Whereas the swirlers, if you want to date white men or Spanish men or Asian men, it is what it is. But when I see them have such hatred for Black men, that's when I say the same thing to your Cynthia G's, your Nyla Says, as I say to Fresh and Fits. Like y'all got to look in the mirror. Like both all four of those people need to look in the mirror and realize that they are their biggest problems. And it's because that bitterness they have seems to me to be less focused on other people and more on their own dissatisfaction with life. Yeah, I did. I'll be doing a video on that. But there's clear self-hatred within the movement, which is why I rejected. Also, Cynthia G wants to, yeah. And the crazy thing was where Cynthia G used to be. Because I remember some old Cynthia G videos, and I'm like, what the hell happened? And I know I know at one point she was beefing with Tariq. And like, I'm wondering if that's when everything changed. Because I remember at one point, like I saw her and Tariq going back and forth. And then I didn't see her for a while. And the next time I saw her, it was Cynthia G, Queen of the Divestors. And it's like, what? Bash Black women because that's what sold. Constantly went in on Black men. His fans wouldn't have watched him. But now think about it. There was a lot of women watching. There were a lot of women watching. And so this is what I'm saying. If we're responding to negative content more than positive content, like, is it so is it him? Is it the creator, or is it us? Because there's people out there that are speaking positively about men, about women, about relationships, but are we watching them? So if we're not watching them, but we watch the ratchet stuff, we want to see. So case in point, Big Brother. I remember when Big Brother first started back in 2000. There was this dude named Will Mega, Black dude. And when Big Brother first started, the audience, we as the public, got to call in and vote people off. They stopped that after that season. Let me tell you why they stopped that. because Will Mega was this black dude, and he got into it with this white chick in the house, and this was like within the first couple of days, and like immediately, oh, he's got to go. Oh, we don't like him. He's disrespectful. Got rid of Will Mega, and then suddenly the show just sucked. Like he was the most, like, despite the fact they didn't like the way he talked to some people, he was entertaining. So they got rid of him. The viewing public voted him off, and then realized the show was boring without him and stopped watching. And so next time around, CBS said, okay, no, we can't let the viewers choose who they're going to kick off. We got to do it inside the house. Like, do we watch like somebody that's willing to be the nuance, or are we attracted to the extremes? Because it seems like we're getting what we're asking for. That's what it seems like. Now, maybe the algorithms are obscuring the reality, and then there needs to be something done about that. And I mean, like, we need to actually be doing something about that to counter that. But to how much of a degree are we like contributing to the rise of extremism? Because if that's what we're watching, that's what we're responding to. For diversity, Amaterasu, welcome. Going in on him wasn't the same as actually celebrating his death. I actually watched Cynthia G video, and she was not. Oh wow, okay, I didn't know that. Yes, some women were grave dancing, but to say black women as whole, no, I'm not saying that. Is out here speaking facts, a like-minded individual. Didn't Kevin die with an overnight? But I guess it didn't matter since she wasn't black. So if those pictures are who she is, then yeah, then she seemed a little bit on the full-figured side. We really do need more positive male role models, because the amount of black men that worship KS and saw him as a dad is sad. Taylor, PJ, KS did not die with an overweight woman. Okay, so do they have actual pictures of the woman? That's why I heard blaming his fans for putting it out there. You can't even let people criticize him. What's the meaning of militant? So kind of very almost violent. and yeah, almost violent. Like they're willing to go to certain extremes to achieve objectives. Cynthia G is actually speaking some facts in her KS video. If you just ignore her generalization of BM. But no, I don't like Cynthia G either, and she's toxic as hell. Like I said, I remember when she used to be spitting fire, and it's like, wow. She started, yeah, that's what I'm saying. She started on some, like when she was with, was it Fly Nubian Queen, was it? Thousands of black women loved him. Millions of black women hated him. People definitely watched him because of toxicity. Yeah. The women who hated KS were basically, what happened to Cynthia might be the same thing that happened to Samuel. The algorithm is a big, and so in that case, the algorithm, like there could be an actual problem with the algorithm. Like we may have to adjust our content to avoid the nonsense of the algorithm. Because if the algorithm is intentionally not pushing positive content, then we've got to make adjustments in how we present our content. But yeah, so like I said, it really is, like I said, it shocked me, and I really do see a loss as a content creator, because he was working on something bigger. He is building something bigger. And I really was curious to see that come to fruition. And I think of it, for instance, I just saw, I'm not, no spoilers, I'm not gonna say anything about the movie, but I just finished watching a couple of days ago the whole Multiverse of Madness, and it was almost as if he was putting together like an Avengers team of content creators. And so, and he had like a plan of what he was doing with that, which I thought was going to be very interesting to see how that transpired and what that wound up doing. And I think that like that's a huge loss, because to see those content creators and more come together would have been a very interesting phenomenon. But I did want to get to the topic that is, that's we wanted to start with, about I was on Lapeef Network. I jumped on a panel last week. In fact, that's what Gore is talking about, the Lapeef Network. And once again, thank you, Gore, for the super chat, because I jumped on Lapeef Network, and they were, so the particular stream they had featured the lead attorney and Nathan Daly. By the time I jumped off, lead attorney had already jumped off. By the time I jumped on, lead attorney had already jumped off the panel. Nathan Daly was still there. Uncle Stu, Old Man on the Block, was there as well. As of course, others. JB, Cam was there. So there was the discussion got very interesting. Angry Man was there. Taylor. So yeah, this is the one. It features the lead attorney and Nathan Daly. It was from Wednesday night. And when I jump in, because of the people that were on the panel, it seemed everybody that was left on the panel when I came up there was in favor of Roe v. Wade being overturned. And it's interesting because there are so many in the Black community that are anti-abortion. And that's a really interesting, because you will not see that demonstrated in the popular media. You will not see that demonstrated. So what happened when I jumped on, I came in and I'm like, I get that people may not like the woman getting rid of their kids, their pregnancies, ending their pregnancies. But government is not the answer. Government is never the answer. If you want less women ending pregnancies early, then that's something that we need to be addressing on holistically, on a communal level, a nonprofit level, an educational level, some other level than telling the government, we want you to come in here and make rules against this. So that's what I came on to talk about. That's what I came in, and that was the perspective I brought. Despite that fact, people misconstrued, like people took what I was saying as, oh, well, white men are the problem. somehow it got construed that I was saying, oh, Black people are victims, white people are the problem. And I'm like, what? And I said, well, listen, let's not get it twisted. This government has traditionally and continues to keep its boot on the neck of Black people. That's no mistake. And so then, at one point the question was asked, well, what about white people? I said, listen, white people are also suffering on this government now. Now they're realizing it. Now now there's more white people feeling what Black people have been complaining about. And you could look no further than, you don't have to look any further than 2020 to see that so perfectly encapsulated. And like right here on Staten Island, right here in New York, I'm in the Bronx, but on Staten Island, during the summer of 2020, you had people protesting the summer of Floyd. They were protesting against police brutality, and you had Staten Island residents protesting, counter protesting, doing these Back the Blue protests. Back the Blue. We don't need criminal justice reform. The government's not a problem. Back the Blue. Okay. That was in the summer. Fast forward a couple of months in October, November, those same people that were doing Back the Blue rallies on Staten Island are now protesting against the police, against the government because of the lockdowns, because businesses are being locked down and they can't operate their businesses. So the same people that were backing the blue turned around later a few months later, and now all of a sudden they felt the boot on their neck, and now all of a sudden government was overreaching. Now all of a sudden government was a problem. But when black people were complaining about it, they were oblivious. And so that's what I say. I say, listen, black people have been complaining about overreaching government, out of control government since the government existed. And the white people, like white America, ignores these complaints at their own peril, because the boot will not stay only on our neck. Make no mistake about it. The boot will not stay only on Black America's necks. They will. Once the government gets comfortable brutalizing its citizens, it has no reason to stop. So say, okay, wait a minute. I can brutalize all of the citizens. I don't need to just brutalize Black Americans. Brutalize everybody. I've got power. And I'm going to exercise and continue to abuse that power. And so that was the conversation. That's where the conversation went on the Lapeef Network. But people were then arguing that if white people are being targeted by government as well, then the government can't be racist. And I'm like, no, that just means that in addition to racism, like that's one of the motivation of some of these tyrants, but they're also just power hungry people that have no problem also, just cracking in skulls of non-black people. So anti-blackness isn't the only vice they have. But that conversation blew up, and like at one point, basically throughout most of the night, like for a significant portion of this debate, it's me against everybody else. Everybody else is like just boom, boom, hitting me with. So even Logic gets on, and they're criticizing me, and they're talking about me, just the victimhood Olympics, and not having any solutions. And I said, the first thing I came on with was the solution. I said, government is not the solution. We need to be the solution. We need to be doing things. If we want to stop women from ending pregnancies early, we have to actually start meeting the needs of people and doing this on our own so that the government doesn't get involved. I said, what do you know about having no solutions? I started with solutions. But, I can continue to get piled on. And at one point, Logic asked me a question. But before I get to that question, I just want to talk to the chat real quick. So let me tell you the question. Yes. He asked, like, you're there in New York. And, because I was talking about getting involved with the community and talking to young ones out here, people that young ones that may be thinking of going the wrong way, or that may be on the wrong path, of actually getting in the community. And the question he asked me is, he first started with, if you park your car, do you lock your door? I said, yeah, I lock my door. Because there'll be people who try to take some out of your car. Okay, he said, would you go out? Would you be out because you're in the Bronx? Would you go? In him and it's between him and Angry Man that asked me this question. Would I go out in the Bronx at like 3 o'clock in the morning? So let me just talk to the chat real quick. Do you blame black people dating outside the race? Some people choose to do it, and it's what they choose to do. Some may have various reasons, and there's all kinds of reasons why people may date outside their race. I'm not a fan of the self-hatred. If you're dating a non-black person, but you're talking mess about black people, I gotta look at you differently. I gotta look at you skeptically, because now it sounds like you have an issue with black people, some self-hatred at work. There's nothing wrong with black people dating out. The problem is when you start bashing. Thank you, PJ. Contrary to what the media portrays, black people are actually very socially conservative. Yes, and that's you're seeing that. If you're looking at YouTube right now, you're seeing a lot of black people that have a different perspective than what the media is portraying. I am for overturning the sacred cow of white women. My only exception would be in case of but wouldn't making this a state issue minimize government involvement. So here's the thing. I know that a lot of libertarians tend to say, okay, we got to get the power out of the federal government's hand. And I'm like, the state government can run roughshod over our rights just as effectively. So I prefer the 9th Amendment to the 10th Amendment all day, every day. I hate how the Supreme Court and the government has done everything in their power to minimize the significance of the 9th Amendment. And the 9th Amendment is what puts the rights in people's hands, as opposed to the 10th Amendment, which puts the powers in the state's hands. As people want to avoid responsibility of raising a kid and ruin their chances to have a free life. I agree, pro-lifers must realize getting rid of it means a lot of quality of life things need to be either upgraded or just exist in general. Because it's funny, I saw people talk about how there's crime and there's chaos, and then saying, oh yeah, but we need to get rid of it. I'm like, wait a minute. And if you're looking at the black community and talking about how many of these youngins out here are running around with no supervision, then the answer can't be, okay, yes, we need more people that aren't that don't have resources, that don't have stable family homes. We need more of them out there. Like, that can't be the answer. Let's address actually providing solutions and actual help for the youngins that are out here that need some resources, and then we can start worrying about, okay, now we can get the numbers up, because right now just getting the numbers up only is going to create more chaos. Safety and enrichment of children should be one of America's highest priorities, full stop. Saving them from can't be our only goal. Churches need to step up. Churches need to be more focused on actually helping people than just helping themselves. The church has done enough damage already. The entire debate is nuanced. However, Roe V Wade is a legal precedent that should never have existed. Furthermore, we stand a better chance if the issue is in the hands of the state. Death surely isn't the answer either. Have you explored other churches? Okay, so I want to get back to that question, because he asked me the question, what do I feel? Would I be out at 3 o'clock? Now, this is on Wednesday. The funny thing is, I already know, like, it was a very interesting question, because I'm thinking, and if you watch it, I think like there's a pause for me, because I'm thinking about the fact that I have tickets to go see Doctor Strange the next night at like 3 a.m. So I'm like, yes, I would go out. Like, I have no problem going out in the Bronx late night, after midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. No problem. But they assumed I was lying. They said, "Oh, you're just saying that because you don't want to be wrong." But they just lit into me. And so at one point I say, I said, "Listen, I grew up in the projects, and let me see something. There's Okay, so I talked about how I grew up in the projects, right? I talked about how I was from Edenwald Projects. Um, and so if you're not familiar with Edenwald Projects, it's a projects in the Bronx that has a reputation. And so I talked about that briefly. But they're like, no. They said, "Listen, we don't believe you. You're not like there's no way you'd be going out in the Bronx, at late at night with as rough as the Bronx is, especially now." And I said, "Well, listen, I believe in trying to talk to these youngins and get them to understand that there's a better way." And somebody says, "Well, they're not going to listen to you. They're not going to listen to you because they don't even respect you. They don't. They won't respect just regular people. Who don't live that lifestyle. Who don't know the streets. They don't even respect you. They will discard this. They won't pay any attention to anything you have to say." And so at that point, I think it was Nathan Daly who says, "Well, we don't know if this guy's ever done time." And so, like, I was at the point where I wasn't saying this to, because there's some people who want to brag about certain stuff, and I didn't want to be in that position. And I'm not bragging about it. But at this point, it became relevant to the conversation. And so I says, full disclosure, yes, I have been to prison. Full disclosure, I spent 15 years in federal prison. That drastically changed the conversation. Drastically changed the conversation because a lot of people that see me now on the show aren't aware of that. There are people who may have seen my channel from the beginning or known me from some years ago that are aware of that. But a lot of people that watch me now may not be fully aware of the fact that I did spend 15 years in federal prison. But once that drops, it's like the conversation changes drastically. And Angry Man was one of the people that's like, "Wow, brother," like he, because like I don't want, I'm not saying it to like yeah, I'll definitely get to that shortly. So Angry Man was like, "Man, like listen, respect, brother, that you came out and you made it." Logic does not like people that break the law. Logic was, "I don't respect that. I don't respect criminals." That's who Logic is. And so Nathan Daly then made the statement, yes, okay. Jay, you spent time in jail, you mean as an administrator, right? No, as an inmate. Well, convict, kind of more convict than inmate in terms of the mindset. So because there's a difference between the mindset of a convict and an inmate. But Tack Lad, welcome. Logic is one of the biggest bootlickers out there. But yeah, he was like, "I don't care. Like, I don't respect criminals. No criminals. I don't care what they're in for. And so Nathan was like, well, hold up. We don't know. Like, we don't know if he was there for a computer crime. So I was like, whoa, okay. I said, listen, not there for a computer crime. Because if you don't know what he means by that, like there are people who go to prison for computer crimes that are those are people that are at the very bottom of the not well respected, not at all respected, are thoroughly reviled because of the nature of their offense, not the nature of my offense. Absolutely not. I said, listen, Nathan, first things first, I says paperwork. That's the first thing I do. Every spot I go to, I show that paperwork because that's a staple of prison. You go someplace, you show your paperwork so people know you're not there for no pedo nonsense. You're not a snitch. You're not a sex offender. Because those three things, like, good. You're not. Nobody's messing with you. And in fact, in other words, nobody's dealing with you. People might mess with you and severely, but those three things are absolutely reviled in the prison system. So I didn't actually get the opportunity at that point to share with everyone on the network what I went in for. That's what I'm about to share with you now. So in 2000, I got out in 2015. 2000, I went to prison for, here it goes. For attempting to hijack a plane. That was not my finest moment, but it is what it is. It happened. And I was in a different space mentally. I was in a different space. I was just in a different space completely. And so got locked up, wound up spending 15 years in, got out in 2015 and got to work. And so now this actually ties into something I had dude playing GTA. This actually ties into something that it was really funny that happened yesterday when Kevin Samuels, just out of the blue, one of the videos, his old videos that showed up on my feed was about reinventing himself, about reinventing yourself. And he was like, hey, if you've been to prison, reinvent yourself. And so like people see me in these suits and people have asked me, oh, are you a lawyer? No, I'm not a lawyer. People have asked me, well, how do you know the law? Why do you, how do you know so much about the law? Well, because in prison, that's what I did. First thing I did when I got to prison was hit the books, because I was looking at a significant amount of time. And in order to attempt to secure my freedom, I needed to be in those law books. So I was in those law books heavy. And so, thank you, Dell. So from a perspective of respect inside, like that's something that it's a respectable offense inside. No, I was not doing that. No, I was not. I was just, like I said, I was in a different mental state then, not a good mental state, not a stable mental state. But that's what led me to get in. And ultimately, but that's why I had to fight so hard in the law books to get my freedom, because I was looking at, had I got convicted of all the charges, I had 5 counts against me. Had I got convicted of all 5 counts, I would have been looking at a minimum of 27 years. So first thing I did was, and I thought I was a bad kid swiping bikes and phones. So first things first, I got to fight this case. So that's why I am, that's where I got my legal my whole legal education basically, because I was inside doing the pro se thing for a bunch of it, where I'm in the law library with cats that have been in longer that are fighting their cases, and so we're bouncing stuff off each other. We're learning knowledge together, and like I've got cats that have been fighting their cases for years, and so I'm getting the breakdown. And I remember one of the things that the dude, one of the cats would tell me, he's like, "Don't fight the facts, fight the process." One of the best pieces of jailhouse law advice: don't fight the facts, fight the process. Because so many times guys get in, I didn't do it, and in this case, they kind of have a couple of witnesses that I may have been the person involved in the action. So I needed to thoroughly familiarize myself with the law if I was actually going to win that case. But that's why I said, okay, once I was able to, because like I said, we didn't actually get to that point in the conversation where I was discussing this with the Lapeef Network. We just got to the point of the fact that I spent 15 years in prison. And so it drastically changed the conversation, and it enabled people to see my perspective. Because one of the questions that had been asked early on was, well, how's the government boot on your neck? Like what, like you're talking about government's boots. And the example I had initially used was, hey, the mandates. You've got these mandates that exist that are stopping people that don't have the jab from being able to work. And that's one of the things that I'm suing the city on. I don't have the courage to steal a pack of gum after that ass whooping my mom gave me, beat down right in the middle of the office in front of security. Listen, that sometimes that'll do it. That'll do it. Just like sometimes that'll do it. Ma just lights into us and like, I'm good, but so once the conversation changed, it was individual was a lot more able to see my perspective of why I feel the way I feel about government. And that's just like scratching the surface in terms of having been to prison and seeing firsthand how many individuals are just getting screwed over, of seeing dudes get caught with nothing. Like they got caught with nothing, but somebody pointed the finger at them and said, yes, I did go to prison. I was in prison for 15 years in federal prison. And I'll just pull up the article real quick. Where is it? Yes. Yes, so I was in prison for attempting to hijack a plane. This was before 9/11. Had this happened after 9/11, I would not be breathing for obvious reasons. In fact, the funny thing is, I was supposed to go to trial. I was supposed to be preparing for trial jury selection in September of 2001. That happened, and I'm like, we got to stall. Like, I'm like, there's no way I can go to trial with this charge at this time. Like, I would have had no shot. Because I was so like, this is one of the reasons why I know I'm so familiar with the law. This is one of the reasons why I'm so familiar with what's happening with the other dude. That's what he's dealing with in the steps that he's now dealing with in terms of his case. I wouldn't have last. You just got out. So yeah, I got out in 2015. So yeah, I've been out, and so like that's one of the reasons why I'm even this YouTube thing, the social media thing. When I left, this didn't exist. Like, we had cell phones, but there was no smartphones when I left. So when I came out, I'm like, what is a smartphone? I I didn't know what a smartphone was. And just seeing all the social media, all this Twitter, all this Facebook, it was like mind blowing. It was like a different world than when I had left the street. But it was so interesting that the discussion went differently after that, and we were able to. And there's more discussions we've got coming up, but I definitely wanted to. Um, you would never know that from your demeanor now. Great job turning your life around. Thank you, Devil. Thank you for real. I really appreciate it. Culture shock is the term. Yeah, definitely a culture shock. And so yeah, that's one of the things I'm talking about, like the whole reinvention thing of since I've been out. Like when I came out, I was in the halfway house, and like my mindset was I gotta get a job. And I was willing to work because inside you can work for 12 cents an hour. You'll be like that's the well, there's one rate that's under that, but generally speaking, the starting rate in the feds is 12 cents an hour. So I'm like, after working for 12 cents an hour, Burger King, McDonald's, that's light years beyond that. And so I was in the halfway house. I'd be wearing suits, and it's amazing that despite my past, since I've been out, I don't get stopped by police. The only encounter I had with police, like the only it was when I was one of my roommates had called the cops on the landlord at one point, and I wasn't a fan of that, like especially him knowing what my position. I was like, dude, what are you doing? But knowing, carrying myself a certain way enabled me to just like fly under the radar. And so when dudes talk about reinvent, like this is one of the lessons, like I will tell youngins, like, listen, you don't have to, you're looking a certain way to fit in, but you're actually putting yourself at risk, especially if you're living that life. If you're in that life, then you definitely shouldn't be drawing attention to yourself in a manner that cops are going to be like, he fits the description. If you're living that life, then you definitely want to look something like you're doing something else so that you can continue doing whatever it is you're doing without getting locked up. Of course, I would say don't do that, period. Don't be doing that stuff, period. That's my advice. But it doesn't make sense to be putting yourself into harm's way and potentially, like, I don't want to get stopped by cops. I know nobody really wants to be stopped by cops. So if there's something we could be doing to lessen that, and it's not about them, it's not about it being right. It's a matter of, being pragmatic and be like, listen, I don't want the hassle. I don't want to deal with these. I don't want to deal with these people bothering me, looking through my stuff. I don't want to deal with it. So in terms of of not having that added stress, okay, is there something I can do to avoid it? Were you framed? Not exactly. And by not exactly, I mean not at all. Question I've always wanted to ask someone who went to prison on a serious crime. Is that part of it? Is that part of you still in you, or have you excised it? So mental illness was a big part of why I did what I did. My mental illness has been resolved. I've been free of mental illness. So this happened in 2000. I've been free of my mental illness since 2003. There is another component that, so being in prison, there's a certain life, there's a certain way you live in prison. And you have to be, and so you either have to be um, if you want to live without certain pressures on you, there's a certain way you have to live in prison. So you have to be willing to do certain things. To that extent, I have certain things I am capable of, but I do not wish to get to that point. So violence, so yeah, let me just put it plain. Violence is something I am capable of. Violence is something I do not wish to engage in. So I seek to be as nonviolent as possible. I seek to avoid violence, but should the necessity arise, I am prepared to protect myself and those I care about. So that and so that goes to what they were talking about of, do I go out at, like, yeah, I go out, because like even I used to work late shifts, and then I'd be like, I was living in East New York at a 3/4 house. This is like shortly after I got out, and so I'd be going to work at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm in the middle of this. I'm walking through East New York neighborhoods, 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, it is what it is. I got to be prepared for it. Hey, if stuff goes down a certain way, stuff goes down a certain way. But I have to be prepared to handle certain things should they arise. Once again, I don't seek those things, but that ability exists within me, and it's why I look at individuals who are coming out of prison a different way. So the reason why I look at, so like people will say, oh, somebody goes to prison, somebody comes out of prison, we need to do X, Y, Z, and I'm like, listen, if you've put them in prison and you have a prison situation where, like Rikers is just run in a way where you're forced, in order to survive in there, you have to become the worst version of yourself. And so not fixing Rikers, not or just putting people in prison for nonviolent crimes is bad for everybody, because you're putting them into basically gladiator school where they have to live ultra violent lifestyle. They have to become the worst version of themselves. And then you're saying, okay, now we're going to let you out into the street. Yeah, that's not going to work out too well for everybody else, because you've got somebody who's gotten used to dealing with things a certain way. And now, like, one of the things I realized once I came out was people out here are much less respectful than people in there, because in there, respect is provided because there's definitive and known consequences behind disrespect. You disrespect people in prison, we know what the consequences are going to be. Out here in the street, people get much more comfortable being disrespectful to one another, bumping into people without saying excuse me, invading people's space. They're much more comfortable doing stuff that dudes don't do in prison, which will, like, if you're doing the stuff that a lot of these people out here in the street do to somebody who just came home, it's not going to be a pleasant situation. And so I've seen situations where people think like it's a game, and it's like, no, you don't play certain games because you're used to, just getting away with certain stuff out here. Treat people with respect so that things don't have to escalate to a level where people wind up getting hurt. You got more time, hijack and plane the most. Yeah, and it is crazy that I'll see, like, not just me, I see dudes that they're on drug crimes. And then there's dudes that are coming in on those other crimes, coming in, going out, coming in, going out. And then, like, I've got cats in there, like one cat who's doing a life sentence. They didn't catch him with anything. But the people that got caught with the drugs, oh, He was the boss. He told us to sell it, and he told us to take out some dudes over there. He told us to do this, and he got a life sentence because people just pointed the finger at him. Wow, it's the sad truth. This country is doomed. Yeah, it really is. It is crazy. Another situation that I just found out about, one of my old friends that I knew from inside. We were inside at a couple of joints together. I got out. He got out, some months later, but he's back in right now. He got hit with a gun charge. So he's a felon in possession of a firearm, and they gave him 25 years. And I'm just so pissed about it. 25 years. They gave him 25 years for a felon in possession of a firearm. He didn't use the firearm. He just possessed the firearm. And they gave him 25 years. So, yeah, this is why criminal justice is definitely one of the things I focus on. It's one of the reasons, everything I experienced and saw are just part of the reasons why I just have such a hatred for government. And it is a hatred for government. Because it's funny, Nathan Daly. So if you don't know Nathan Daly, he's a former police officer, also a fellow content creator. And so he expressed, he's like, okay, so I definitely see you have dealing with some trauma. And I'm like, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, when I came home, I was angry. I was so angry. And I've managed to get past a lot of the anger, but I'm still angry on my behalf. I'm still angry at what's being done to so many others. And that's why, when Joe Biden got elected, I was sick to my stomach, because I know dudes that are spending their lives in prison because of Joe Biden. Like, that's not an exaggeration. It's not an abstract concept. It's a literal thing. I know dudes that are spending their lives in prison. I know dudes that have died in prison because of Joe Biden. Criminal justice should be a place Black men should thrive in. Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. It's crazy because he got out, and so he's affiliated. He got out, but he's in the same neighborhood. He's in one of the neighborhoods he used to live in. So now he's got any beef that he had before he went in, they're still there. So he's supposed to not be able to protect himself. And if he does protect himself, then he goes back. And in this case, he had something on him to protect himself, and they sent him back for 25 years. It's absolutely insane. But I'm gonna go ahead and put a link, because it lasted a while. I was there for a while. So, with me and Chaotic, that was a half an hour or so thing. This discussion went on a lot longer, and it was between, in fact, I think I wound up staying for several hours until almost until the end. So, I think maybe there's a half an hour at the end or so, right after I dropped out. But yeah, so it's a lot. But I will put the link to that panel in the community section, if anybody wants to check that out. When you look at the Joe Bidens of the world, they're grooming their kids to run the world and be in charge of politics like themselves. There's no connection between them and us. And here's the thing that really pisses me off about Joe Biden. It goes back to him giving that speech about holding drug users accountable. 1989, he gives that speech. September 5th, 1989. 1 year earlier, Hunter Biden was arrested in Atlantic City with drugs. No consequences. Charges thrown out, charges dismissed, swept under the rug. Nothing happened to him. But Joe Biden gets on TV and advocates for the absolute destruction of our communities. And so many in the Congressional Black Caucus just completely sold us out. Cool. I watched the panel. Yeah. So it was an interesting panel. And so like I didn't expect that to happen. But once we got to that portion in the discussion, I said, okay, full disclosure. Let me share my background with the panel. Yep, not his son. And I remember seeing Joe Biden at the debate, and people were praising him about how he said, I love my son has a problem, and millions of Americans have a problem. And like, but those millions of Americans, you had them locked away, and you're talking about, I don't care how they got their problems. I don't care that they have problems. I don't care what happened to cause these problems. I want them locked under the jail. Because there's something people don't realize about the way the federal system changed. Because in the 80s, the federal system used to be considered, like, if you've ever heard the term club fed, there was this, federal prisons were ran a different way. Federal prisons were like, federal prisoners were treated a certain way. Much better. The prisons are definitely maintained much better than a lot of state prisons. But the prisoners were treated better. But here's what happened. In the 80s, they start changing the law around. So, among other things, they get rid of parole. They enhance what crimes are getting charged. So that's when Joe Biden's doing his whole 86 Anti-Drug Abuse Act. They are changing the sentencing scheme 85% of the time. Then they create the 100-to-1 ratio, 100-to-1 crack to cocaine ratio to just bury Black people in jail. And then in the 90s, they do something else. In the 90s, they actually start changing the way people are treated in prison. So they actually start making prisons, like they literally came up with a law, several amendments to laws that made federal prison, harsher places because they were putting more Black men in prison. So they came up with the laws to put more Black men in federal prison, and then they changed the way they treated federal prisoners. None of that was by accident. Like, when you watch that, you realize these people are some absolute scumbags, because they came out with the Zimmer Amendment, and the Zimmer Amendment stopped weights, stopped like instruments, stopped in having dudes from being able to buy TVs, because they would be able to buy these personal TVs for themselves. They stopped that. They stopped people from having weights. They stopped people from having electrical instruments. They stopped from having Pell Grants. They stopped certain types of material from getting in there. They changed the entire face of federal prison as they started putting more Black people in there. They literally changed the rules and the way they treated federal prisoners as they started putting more Black men in federal prison. Joe Biden has to be the most ridiculous example of an oxymoron that exists today. I'm just tired of it. The only way forward is dissolving the politicians as they exist. None of them are honorable. They're horrible people. Absolutely horrible people. Matt Walsh, Black people benefit from the criminal justice system. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that they just, like, people like Matt Walsh just say stuff. They just make stuff up. Well, of course, but white prisoners catch any of this? Catch any of what? Like the what you mean, the the new rules. So like when it was the point is that when it was more white prisoners in there, the treatment was different. They actually changed the way prisoners. So even the menus, like they used to serve. You can like look up stories about how they used to serve like steak, shrimp. They used to serve different things in federal prison. As as they started putting more black people in prison, then they stopped the stuff they were serving. They're like, okay, no, we're not serving this good stuff anymore, because now we've got black people in here. We want to make sure they suffer. You're absolutely right. Jason Black pointed out that as soon as Jim Clyburn got into office, he signed the crime bill supporting Joe Biden. Absolute sellout. Absolute sellout. So, Pillow. So the white dudes that were there were subject to the same rules, but the demographics of the prison had changed. So the from the 80s going into the 90s, they started locking up more black people and putting more black people in federal prison. The drug laws, the crack law, the 100-to-1 gun laws, they started charging. And like my boy, he got caught in state with a firearm. The feds charged him. He got caught in his state. So why are the feds picking up? Because that's what the feds started doing. The feds started picking up black men and putting them in prison for firearm crimes, even if even if they weren't crossing state lines. The feds just started picking up these cases, taking it over from the state, and then throwing black men into federal prison. And as the numbers of black men in federal prison increased, that's when they decided, okay, now we're going to change the way federal prisons are run. Now we're going to make them harsher. We don't, because if you watch Dick Zimmer talking about it, Dick Zimmer actually says, yeah, we don't want these to be places of comfort and these perks. And I'm like, wait a minute. What changed? What changed that now you think that there's too many perks for federal prisoners? Check out the most recent video. Yeah, I saw him with the reparations. Yeah, he's cursing, he's mad, and he starts talking about voting rights, some dumb stuff about voting rights. Like what? Yeah, I saw that. Him and Celine Jackson Lee are fighting hard for, and he says, yeah, we've been fighting for 30 years. Then you're incompetent. If you've been fighting for 30 years, you're in Congress, and you can't get anything done after 30 years, you're incompetent. You need to get out the way. You are in the way, Jim Clyburn. If you've been fighting for this for 30 years and you still have nothing, like that's the height of incompetence. Yeah, I saw that one. I definitely saw that one. And yeah, so it definitely has affected my perspective on the world around me. Because yeah, criminal justice is clearly something that I've seen up close and personal. I've seen the problems with it, and it's something that needs to be addressed. So like that's one of the reasons why I have such a disdain for government, because I've seen government up close and personal and just how garbage they really are. And all of these the 60 plus overcrowds still believe in waiting. Yeah, a lot of them are just, and it's a statement I made the other night. I said, we failed the younger generations. And I include myself. We failed the younger generations because we keep leaving them at the mercy of a government that we know hates them. We know this government hates them. We know this government hates us, but we keep leaving these young men and women at the mercy of the same government. And then we keep advocating for this government to have greater control and greater power over our lives. That doesn't make any sense. None whatsoever. It does not make any sense. And so, yeah, it's like we can't expect, and that's why I say I will speak about solutions. My solutions will not include giving the government more power. That's what my solutions will not include. My solutions will not include giving the government more power. That's just not an option. The government is the problem. The government has been perpetuating these problems. The government has been creating more and more problems, and I am not in favor of giving this government more power over our lives at all. I want to thank everybody for coming to the stream. Definitely want to give a special shout out and thank you to Gore Mahaya for the super chat. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I want to thank everyone else for coming to the stream, for checking out the stream, for talking to me this Sunday afternoon. And yeah, I mean, I want everybody to have a great rest of your afternoon. I'm gonna put that information in the community tab. In my opinion, the group that benefits most from the Democratic government having all the power are two groups: legal immigrants and LGBT. Okay. Rocket Man, Rocky Matrix, welcome. Hey, how you doing? Like I said, I'm going to be putting the information for the panel that I was on in the Lapeef Network in the community section. So if anybody wants to check it out, they can go check it out. I'll clip right from basically when I jump on the panel, so you can check out that portion going forward. Thanks again to everybody else. Thanks again to everybody else for joining the stream. Thank you to Gore Mahaya for super chatting. And everyone have a great night. Have a great Sunday afternoon and evening. I'll see you next time.